So, welcome back to Blueprints, where we're interviewing different creatives in order to make as much information accessible to the ones who come after us. Today, today we're here with none other than Bubu Ogisi, founder and creative director of IAMISIGO. How you feeling today?
Hi. Hi. Thanks for having me. I feel very orange today and bright and happy. It's Friday. It's Friday.
And it's a public holiday.
Yeah.
So let's get into it, Boo Boo. So you call yourself a fiber artist. Could you explain to us what this entails for those who might not know?
Thank you. Um, so I mean, before everyone was trying to box me into this idea of a designer, and I was like, I feel like what I do more is beyond designing. It's beyond the body. It's more for like space, but also our environments and working through research through time. So I think the best category I could put myself in was describing myself as this fiber artist who goes around nomadically researching different fibers and materials and languages and people and personalities and religion and magical systems and social policies. I think everything I do sort of encompasses into that because in regards to everything that I create or I make, the idea of texture or feeling or understanding the smell or how something looks visually is part of the idea of a fiber artist. So yeah, that's why I call myself that.
So going into this idea of being a nomad, as you said, and kind of trying to understand all these cultures, we know that IAMISIGO is based in Lagos, Nairobi, Accra, Abidjan, Abidjan. So how is it navigating, like working in all these different landscapes? And how is it managing work cultures as well, in all these different places? Like, do they have more similarities or more differences?
Um, like everywhere we go to, it's based off of just figuring out the connectivity between one place and another. Um, the reason why I have to work within all these different spaces and even more, it's beyond all these four countries. It's in addition with other places such as Congo, Tanzania, Uganda, Senegal, Mali. I guess it's all the idea. It's just about borderless ideologies, how to understand how this place and this other place sort of have the same processes and techniques, but call it something different, but also work with a different machine. But the actual technique in itself is really, really the same. But it's figuring out how the different personalities or gender coordinations exist within this part of Africa and another part of Africa. Um, I honestly enjoy traveling. I'm a Sagittarius, so I feel like this is my destiny. So for me, it was when I started out. I grew up in Ghana. I went to school in Ghana also, but I was also able to live between like England, Nigeria, and Ghana, thanks to my mom and my sister and my dad, who still lives there. Um, but then even living within this Anglophone world, I wanted to also branch out. So that's why I went to art school and fashion school in Paris afterwards. So the idea of movement has always been part of my life, like moving from one place to the other consistently, but also discovering how, why our personalities are a certain way and how why Kenyans are a certain way and why Nigerians are a certain way. And everything boils down to even the types of food we eat, the types of languages we speak to, that also propels us into this action of personality and that shows in what we wear. So I want to understand why people who are from, the Kikuyus, I would say, dress the way they dress. So how, in Ghana, how the Fantis dress the way they dress, or in Abidjan, how the Baoulés also dress a certain way. But I guess all these different things have, I guess, space in itself also defines. the human being or the body. So for me, it was about how do I go into all these different spaces, but also create something that's unifying, or finding this unism in matter, unism in the fiber, because when I'm doing all these researches and going to all these places, I had to figure out, okay, this plant also grows in this other space. Well, why is it used differently? And then you now break it down and you realize, okay, it's based on the different things we just spoke about, the cultural differences. So it's with me, it's about trying to remove the barrier within these cultural differences and trying to figure out how to, yeah, create something that's bringing all these places together at one.
Oh, so beautiful. I got emotional. So let's kind of take it back to where you studied fashion in Paris. So on this journey that you are on now, or that you have been on, how did that education assist in it? Was this these questions that you ask yourself, were these questions you had before you studied? Were these questions that came up? I don't know how it was for you, but when I studied design in Italy, there was nothing about the African continent. Yeah. So where did these questions that you're asking yourself now like come up? And how did that education you've been through kind of assist or not assist?
I guess growing up in Nigeria, you sort of realize how dressing is an important part of our attitude or our personality. And then living within other parts of Africa, you realize people don't take fashion or dressing up then as important as we do. And then going outside of Africa, and then people are telling me, oh, you guys don't have anything on the continent. And I was like, that's impossible. My mother is always making some outfits for some party every day. And it's literally, you can't get this fabric anywhere else in the world but in Nigeria, which is Ashoke. So it was really weird how also, even back then, designers weren't even trying to like focus on the idea of making things with indigenous materials or indigenously made fabrications. So for me, it was about, okay, if I need to understand why there's this discourse, I need to understand from an outside point of view also, and then come back inside and come and show them or prove to them that everybody's wrong. Um, so it was, yeah, my choice for, I mean, I had the options of going to school in America or going to school in England, but I was like, I want to understand it from a different perspective, because I think language, as I said before, is an important part of understanding things or quantifying things or trying to break down things. So I had to go to where everyone says fashion started, which is Paris. Understanding the essence of, the different aspects of how fashion has also evolved there and also spread out to the world from there, and trying to figure out, okay, this is how it's done there. I need to also go back to Africa to also continue my own exploration, because I would never have stayed back in Paris. I don't think that was on my plans, because it was like, okay, I know what I'm doing here. I know I need to go back and try and figure out how I can also implement this idea of craft making, or dividing the idea of craft and arts, but also hand making, because I think we believe in the process of our hands, and our hands tell different stories. And also through time, I think the stories of Africa was something that was really suppressed or put down on as this sad story. But it's like we have so many stories to tell. Like, why do you guys don't want to hear it? Especially through our clothing and through our outfits. We tell stories every day by the way we dress and how we look every day. So yeah, for me it was about just going there, coming back, and then showing everybody, okay, this is what we got. And this is how we can also eco-innovate and create more and more newer processes and newer techniques. And yeah, ancient things can also be brought back to life in a newer way. Yeah.
And even what you say about your kind of craft being borderless, I think a lot of the world has been able to experience your work, from the architectural triennale in Sharjah, Victoria's Secrets, um, the V&A Africa Fashion Exhibition, and so much more. What would you say was kind of like a pivotal point in your career that kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say like make you feel like you made it, because I feel like success is so different in our parts of the world than like the Western idea of it. And maybe I can ask it in a different way. Like, what kind of spaces would you want to see your work in moving forward?
Um, Pivotal point. I think I'm still looking for that pivotal point. I don't think it has happened yet. I'm truly grateful for everything that has happened. Where do I see my work? I see it where it is now, which is moving through, I guess, culturally, I guess, curated spaces, sort of like museums and galleries and biennials, because I guess people who go into those spaces go into them wanting to learn and understand, but also trying to see something they haven't seen before. We're in a we're at the artisanal gallery now, which is a concept space. I like the idea of finding different nooks and crannies in different countries for where I would say my pieces can also find a safe space to harbor themselves. And I think either concept spaces or mostly museums or biennials or galleries have this safe space where people can come and learn about how I make the pieces, what I make them from, and who I make them for also. So I guess for the future, I hope to see it in more and more larger scale exhibitions. We're going to create like two more installations now in Germany and in Paris in the next 2 months. So yeah, it's just about just going further and further and then spreading the gospel to people. Preaching the gospel, spreading the gospel, telling people more and more about, the art of handmaking. But also, I mean, it's magical at the same time, but also understanding how technology in itself is also magic and how we can infuse that idea of this new magic with old magic. So magic of the hands and then technology with this new magic. We're also trying to find a way to balance these two because I think everything is about balancing. We can't say, okay, no, we hate technology. That's like saying we hate magic. It doesn't make any sense because everything in this world is magical. This chair that we're sitting on came from magic. So I feel like adding this idea of new magic with old magic now brings about some eco-innovative form of magic that hasn't been seen before. So I think that's where we're going to in the future, but also trying to show people how to balance the idea of body, space, and time, because I believe we all exist within different spaces through time. And I feel like when we enter any space, our bodies sort of feel this sort of energy or vibe that could change you, but also a space could also manifest different types of energies within you. So I guess we're just continuing our process, but focusing now on the larger idea of space transformation and how the ideology of traditionally contemporary African architecture can be brought into something that's also a new way of living even though we're trying to remove ourselves from this colonial mindset and trying to be free at the same time, we also need to create an idea of being free mentally, which is the idea of decolonization through mind. So I just want everybody to just figure out like a freer way of living, a freer way of understanding, a freer way of coexisting that is embedded within like the foundation of spirituality. So yeah.
You're gonna make me cry. I like that idea. What you said of seeing creation or creativeness as magic, because that's really what it is. Yeah. So we've been interviewing a lot of people who exist in this cross section between art and design, expressing themselves in literally whichever way they can. And I like what you said earlier on about like people were trying to put you in a box, but you were kind of like trying to figure it out for yourself and you stuck with that. In terms of also being a nomad, this might be a tricky question. And let me know if I'm also trying to put you in a box. But where do you, out of all these places you work, is there one place in particular you feel like more able to tap into this essence of creation and able to access this idea of magic? Yeah.
Oh wow, this is gonna be. I don't want to be partial. I think everywhere, to be honest. I think every space has its own different energy. Um, Kenya has this special place in my heart because I think my spirit was the one that brought me here. I don't know why I'm still here, but I'm still here. Um, and the one thing I always tell people is, I mean, it might sound hard or insane, but I usually do follow my spirit when it's telling me something, and I'm like, okay, I need to listen because I think I've taken time out to sort of harness it into some stage where I understand, okay, this is for me, this is not for me. So when I came here, what, 10 years ago, for the first time, I was like, okay, I'm in love with this space. There's certain spaces I go to that I love, but I don't necessarily work from or craft in. I feel like my spirit has to find some level of settlement or rest, which is important for creating also. And I think Kenya definitely has that. Nigeria has this chaotic form of creating, which I love because it's the opposite. It's like the other extreme. I was having this conversation yesterday about how each country in Africa is a case study of different scenarios, and Nigeria is that scenario where put a bunch of mad people together. What happens? And I'm truly grateful for being from there and being able to also access all these other spaces. Ghana also is somewhere I love creating, especially like in northern Ghana, which is on the border of Burkina Faso. So creating between Burkina Faso and Ghana is really interesting because I get to work with females within religious communities who don't technically have to be working, but have found a way to sort of craft within different systems that go along their religious beliefs also. Yeah, different places have different special parts in my heart for me, and I feel like that's also this idea of ritual meditation or creativity, where I want to go somewhere I feel like I can meditate here, I can create, and also go back again, which now becomes this ritual movement in space, body, and in time also. So yeah. That's the answer to that.
Like the extent that you research at and like you go out like into the field, into the wild. Like even watching like your Instagram, sometimes I'm like, what? I just love that dedication or like that curiosity. It's
Yeah, I
so
think exactly.
yeah.
I think yeah, I'm really curious. As a child, I was always wondering of. I used to get lost a lot of times, and my mom, when they find me, amen. But it's nice to be lost and then you discover new things. And then, because a lot of times some people are really like scared of discovery because they're so used to like what they're used to. And I remember, I know a lot of people, like, they're like, why are you going to Kenya? What is in Kenya? And I'm like, when you get there, you find out. If you don't go anywhere, like, not everything can be seen on your phone or on TV. You actually have to go and figure it out for yourself. It's like how when people say, oh, I can't come to Nigeria, I'm too scared. And it's like, okay, if you choose not to, that's your own problem. Like, but I'm alive and I still go back and forth to Nigeria all the time. So I feel like this idea of curiosity and always wanting to learn, and I feel like that's the essence of cultivating and preserving essentially Africa's future. It's about just figuring out things that have not been seen or heard about or have been, it's almost going extinct to some extent. So I think for me, it's about always trying to discover, 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 discover.
I do love that. And maybe we just to close off.
Yeah.
You've been waiting for this one. Where do you see, like in your immediate environment, maybe in like the places you've traveled to and stuff, where do you see room for improvement in the design and art and magic world? Yeah, where do you see like, oh, maybe maybe XYZ could kind of like propel other African artists and designers to like do better?
I'm gonna speak for me specifically. I guess it's outside of Africa being a continent on its own, or this really like strong surface area in the history of humanity. We also need to try and discover other spaces that have also impacted this continent too. So for me, in terms of room for improvement, I see myself also trying to see the connectivity with other techniques that are seen outside of this space that but are similar, like Shiburi technique that's similar to the Ajire technique, but also how languages also sound, like how Japanese so similar to Yoruba also. Or going to India and trying to figure out how bronze making or even waxing or dyeing has this similarity with what's happening on the continent also. So for me, in terms of same thing, borderless ideologies, removing myself outside of Africa, but also finding the connectivity within other spaces to Africa is the room for improvement for me. And essentially, I mean, I started working on that last year with the show in the UAE in Sharjah, and yeah, just trying to find how to sort of also take the work to these other spaces and seeing how they also connect to it. So I guess that's the room for improvement. Now that I've worked 10 years on the continent, it's now time to it's now time to see other places that have also been influenced or inspired by the continent and see how to marry these two worlds together.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you for your time. Okay. Oh, Aggie wants to ask you a question. Need the mic. No.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
So the question was if she's had any pushback in the spaces she's existed in. Okay.
I guess that's challenges, right? In doing like different things, right? I mean, first of all, I'm Nigerian, so I always believe that we can go everywhere and do anything. And first, in every four black person in the world, one is a Nigerian.
Yeah.
So first of all, that's my inspiration, being able to go and enter any space at any point in time. Yes, I have had a lot of people be like, "Oh, why is this Nigerian here?" I've also been like, even when I went to do research in Uganda on bark cloth, I was arrested because they thought I was a smuggler. So I've had different issues because it's they don't understand how, okay, somebody who's looking like this, why is this person here, and why is this person wanting to go research about this? It doesn't seem real, but that's my reality. There've been language barriers, but I always pass through that one with the idea of drawing or sculpting or creating things to either make them understand or make ourselves understand each other. um yeah, a lot of people think I do a lot, but I think if I don't do a lot, I get really bored. So I need to consistently always be doing something or discovering something new or finding out some new process or new art or new material, because I want to also implement it on the old material and see how it will mix with the old one and how to find a new one to mix with these two. So it's about, I guess there's some form of mathematics or calculation into everything that's being done, because at the end of the day, I'm not only doing this for myself, I'm doing this for the future. And I want to leave something behind that's substantial in the ecosystem of my existence through time. And if people say, okay, what did this person do they can say, okay, this person did blah, 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 and brought the whole continent together in the art of design or fashion or creativity. So I guess whoever doesn't like what I do, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But this is all I can do. Yeah. So this is me. Yay.